Huh. So we're videoing, eh? Now, as with any of my reviews, I always look at a car and ask myself two questions. The first is, would I recommend it to other people? Would I be okay recommending the vehicle to someone else? And number two is, would I be proud to own one? And I'll answer both of those questions here at the end. Now, the CRV has been one of the leaders in compact sport utilities basically since it was introduced. The RAV4 beat it to market, and the current generation has continued a very, very strong sales success for it. I'm a big fan of Hondas on this channel. I've talked about it before. And I'm surprised, now that I've had a chance to spend some time with this vehicle, how much I like it. And the little things that I'm kind of disappointed in Honda doing. It's a good looking vehicle, but not outstanding. It rides okay, it's kind of peppy, it's just okay. But probably the vehicle that is nearly perfect for almost everyone. So let's talk about it. The CRV is actually based on the same platform as the Civic, which is one of the best small cars you can buy as well. And I think it's pretty good looking. Up front, you've got these big headlights that are not all squinty and narrow. You've got just a little bit of bright work with this big Honda logo in the middle, a little bit of styling underneath where the fog lights are. It isn't sporty, it isn't rakish, but it's also not chasing fads. They're not going with a huge grille. They're not trying to make it look like a sports car. It's just honest in how it's styled. You might say boring, I say honest. Now the rest of it, again, typical Honda being very reserved, a little bit of bright work here around the windows, but that's about it. And just a little bit of sculpting here, and it's actually pretty interesting because they've got this, which carries right through the door handles, but then they've got this little bit of supposedly a bumper strip, probably for other doors knocking you, and then just a little bit of a scallop right here. I think it works pretty well. Again, not outstandingly amazing, but pretty well. Before we move on, let's talk about under the hood. This is the 2.4 liter, should make about 184 horsepower with a CVT transmission, and as you'll see when we drive it, it's entirely adequate. Gas filler, where God intended on the driver's side. Now around back, you kind of continue with just Honda making sense, just making something that works, that's slightly stylish without chasing a fad, except for these lights. These lights are, well, a little faddish because they go up the side here a little bit like an old Volvo or something like that, but I really dig these. I really do. I think they make it look different than some of the other more generic SUVs out there without getting into some crazy styling. I really like these. I like how big and bright they actually are. The rest of it back here, a little bit of bright work, but not that outstandingly interesting. Now let's open the hatch. It is not electronic here, but I left this junk back here so you could see it. It's got a lot of good space. If you were traveling out of town, great space to put in multiple suitcases, you know, a week's worth of groceries. You could probably get 8, 10, 12 bags back here, grocery bags back here, and the back seats lay down really, really well laid out. Just good packaging in a car that, well, I'll admit, it feels bigger than it is. Let's take a look in the back seat real quick. Now, the back seat's pretty comfortable. This seat is set where I would sit. I am about 5'9", and you can see I can't turn my fist sideways here, but I can get it this way behind the seat. Pretty good. Mat pockets on both sides. That's a place that a lot of manufacturers just cheap out on. And they've got vents back here as well. Now, that being said, there's no USB cables, there's no charging points. This is, well, a little basic, but really very comfortable. And I like this almost microfiber seat covering that they use here. And they use a similar product right here. They've got this fuzzier stuff right here. I worry about that catching a lot of dirt from kids and things like that. But other than that, that's hard plastic, hard plastic, hard plastic, lots of hard plastic. But it's really, well, if you will excuse me saying it, it's really good hard plastic with incredibly tight seams. And we'll see that up front. So up front, it's more of the same. This is hard, hard. This is, well, I'd like to say it's soft, but it's not. It's hard, lots and lots of hard plastic here. I guess you could argue that that would hold up well, but I do criticize other manufacturers for using all hard plastic everywhere. I don't think I should exempt Honda, but it is a really, really good plastic with really good graining on it. Lots of little places where they've added a little sculpting to it. It's pretty nice. Like right here. Just a little swoop right there and another little swoop before a couple of different materials right there. But Honda's known for being not chasing fads and being reasonable. So like this little pocket right here under this is nice. Throw change and things like that in there. A pretty big pocket down here. It's not huge. You couldn't put a water bottle down there, but it's nice. And then this thoughtful little place right here as well. Traction control, Econ button. I've talked about those before on Hondas. Controls here on the wheels. Step inside with me. Take a look. All right, so inside, I absolutely love this huge gauge. I'm going to turn this on so we get some air conditioning flowing. But I love the display cluster here. I love this huge speedometer. Little lights on either side. Same thing I've got in my Accord, which change colors based on how efficiently you're driving. Gauges are pretty basic, but very clear. Very, very clear. You can see this one has just over 45,000 miles on it. Around the center here, a couple of big vents. Big vent over there. Little information display up there. This is a little interesting. It's almost a callback to what I've got in my Accord, but it's teeny, tiny. Not really useful other than as a clock. But then down here, you do get the infotainment. It's pretty handy. You can have your iPod and everything else, just kind of what you expect. It's a little slow, if I'm honest. It's just a little slow. It feels a little out of date, and it's supposed to be, yeah, it's probably about a 7-inch screen right there. That's what it's supposed to be. It just looks a little small, but what I love about it is it's integrated in with the dash instead of these modern ones that are just kind of stuck on top of it like an afterthought. One other cool thing about this that I really like is if you turn on the right turn signal, it actually shows you a view over your shoulder there. Interestingly, if you go back to normal, it goes back to the main screen. But if you do a left turn, like when you're changing lanes, this doesn't change. Don't understand Honda's reasoning on that, other than I guess you could look over your shoulder. But there's the view over your shoulder. Also, let's talk about that blind spot back there. Climate controls are really obvious. This has a not black interior, black carpet, but then you get this gray up here. So it's a really light and bright environment, especially if I do that. It's a really nice environment in here, and I like some of the styling they've done. Overall, this is really good. Now, one of the things that I didn't like, when I look at these, when I've seen them at auto shows, when I've looked at them on lots, I hate this up here. Okay? I want a gear shifter down here, right? But this works unbelievably well. The longer you drive it, the more you appreciate that when you sit down, there it is. It's right there. It is so, this is smart, Honda. Thank you for giving us a gear lever. Thank you for not giving us, a knob or something like that. I do like the hybrid ones that have the buttons right here. I think that looks really cool and frees up even this area right here. But this works so well, I've given up hating it. And then down here, we've got some heated seats and a PowerPoint, a couple of cup holders, a little storage right there, and you can see we're still, got the pandemic we're concerned about. So overall, a really nice interior, but that starts, sorry guys, it's hotter than heck. That starts to talk about some of the negatives here. Now, I've got the seat where I'm comfortable. I've got great headroom here, but there's some very un-Honda things about this. I'm going to open this door and show you real quick. Look at this. There's just a general sense that in some things Honda didn't sweat the details, or they cost cut slightly. And you're going to see that as we drive. I'm going to talk about this more. But that door flexing, the handle flexing like that, gosh, that just doesn't feel like Honda to me. Let's get it on the road. Now, the first thing you notice is the steering is really heavy, like unusually heavy. There's no feel through it at all, but it's really heavy, not like a small car. It just, I don't know, it's oddly heavy, and it's noticeably heavy, and it's heavier around parking lots and things like that. So when you think about the demographics that might buy this, especially older people, I don't understand why they would make this as heavy as they would. The CVT, I've talked about Honda CVTs before, and the transmission is, I don't know, you just don't notice it. That's the best part about it. That's why it's a success. I've heard it once kind of peg an RPM and hold it for a few seconds, but not bad. It just kind of works, and it's kind of invisible, exactly what you want in a transmission. The driving experience is dull. Probably more interesting than some others, but this is no Mazda. The problem I have is in the details of this car. And keep in mind, I tend to think that this is probably the best of the compact sport utilities. I'm going to tell you at the end here, when I tell you my opinion, my answer to those two questions, that I think this car is the best compromise for the vast majority of people who are interested in buying a compact sport utility. But depending on what you want, there might be better options. Number one, this door, it feels thin. And I don't mean the width of it. I mean when you shut it, it shuts solidly but sounds tinny, the sound it actually makes. And then inside, I find it to be very noisy in here. I'm on a bumpy road right now. There's a lot of tire noise coming through at the front and back. You get some wind noise, some road noise, coming up here through the cargo area. And then just generally wind noise around the shape. It's not noisy. It is noisier than I expected. I expected a little bit more of a cocoon, and it's not. It's a little shocking. Now, not the noise level itself, because, well, Honda doesn't really focus on sound deadening and making it like a Buick, right? They focus more on what I like to talk about as a sense of lightness. And you get that from this car. A lot of other compact sport utilities I've driven, they feel much heavier, much duller than this, but they do feel quieter. They do feel, in some ways, in the interior, like talking about this door over here, they do feel a little more solid. I think Honda misstepped with this. I know it's a huge seller, but as much as I like it, I just think Honda got it to 99%, not 100. Now, acceleration is pretty decent. It's pretty decent. That's the best thing. 185 horsepower, 184 horsepower, I think. It's decent. It's got some get up and go, but it never ever feels sporty, and it never feels like it wants you to drive aggressively. It just feels adequate, and that sums up this car so well. It is just adequate. It's competent in every way, and that's what makes it so strong. If you want a sporty one, you know what? Buy a Mazda. If you want one that maybe feels a little softer, maybe is quieter, well, maybe the Rogue. If you want something that just has perhaps a little more, let's give it some gas. See, the transmission kind of deadens it a little bit, really sucks up the power before it starts rolling, but then it's got some kick to it. If you really want that baked-in quality, maybe the Toyota's right for you. But again, I think the Honda's possibly the best compromise of all of those. But as much as I like Honda's, just misses the mark ever so slightly. That being said, I mean, my final answer is I think I could own one of these and drive it and never think about it. Every day go out, drive it, and be perfectly happy with it. And almost every owner I've talked to has said the same thing, that they love their CRV. So while I'm nitpicking that maybe the road noise is a little high, maybe the, you know, wind noise back here is a little high, maybe this flexes a little bit. Owners love it because Honda does sweat those details to make this a perfectly wonderful place to spend time and do exactly what you want without aggravating you over anything. Everything just works and falls right where you expect it. Exceptional ergonomics, just a wonderful, wonderful vehicle. And I've talked to a lot of people of all different ages who own one of these, and they all love them. I mean, unabashedly love them. It's a great, great vehicle. So that's the Honda CRV, and after all that, I've got to answer those questions. Number one, would I recommend this to other people? And the answer is absolutely. Some other strong competitors out there. I personally really like the Nissan Rogue, really like the RAV4. I respect it. I think it's a good option, but it's a little coarse and the styling's a little try too hard, but styling is subjective. This works for me. It works in almost every way. I think I like it more than the Escape. I like it more than the Chevy Equinox. I'm not sure I like it more than the Terrain, but the Terrain is a lot more expensive. This to me it's what Honda does best. It's a great compromise between price, efficiency, space, quality, just everything. I think this may be the perfect vehicle for the vast majority of people out there. I've seen young people drive these because they've got the space and they can haul their friends around. Honda, of course, has the HRV if you want something a little smaller. I've seen middle-aged people like myself or younger who use these because you can haul the kids around and still put stuff in the trunk and pick up the groceries, lay the seats down, pick up something from IKEA. And I've seen older people drive this because they get the high seating position, it's efficient, it's cost efficient, cheaper to insure, gets good gas mileage. Would I be proud to own one? Yes, absolutely. I have looked at this vehicle over and over again in my time. I'm not ready to jump to a sport utility, but this one, well, I kind of dig it. I really do. It's not too high, and so it just feels, well, for all the world, it feels like a big station wagon. That's what it feels like, and I really, really like it. What concerns me about this is it lacks a certain Honda-ness to it, a certain solidity of being built of one piece, that they sweated every single detail. The difference between this and my Accord is rather dramatic. While this feels, it's only a few years, 2 years newer, it feels ages more advanced. The technology, the interior, the seats, everything about it feels more advanced, but at the same time, it feels less. And I struggle with that. But I don't think that means it's a bad car by any stretch. I just think if you like this, or if you don't like this, if you're looking at a compact sport utility about this size, thanks for being here, guys. Hope you have a good day.